Well, hello folks, I'm LA Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves just that one question: what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones? I do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. We broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube. It's under the channel LA Little. As far as what happened today, markets were down big. Dow was down almost 250 points. By the end of the day, they're positive, right? The Dow is just slightly negative, but almost positive. Big turnaround, huge turnaround actually, and it happens again in that same spot that we've seen it over and over again, and that's at the bottom of the range. So we'll look at that here in a second. We also had some interesting activity elsewhere, and that is that the dollar sold off, which is kind of what you would expect initially on what's happening in China. China brings the value of the renminbi down again today, and they're intervening in those markets. That devaluation is of course causing all these ripples that we're seeing around the world, including what happened here today. But this market still does not want to roll. With the dollar down, the gold goes up. I think this is a temporary thing, right? Where gold, oil, all these others are benefiting from a weaker dollar. But in the end, all those other countries are going to have to do what? They're going to have to devalue themselves again. And so you're going to see it all flip back around at some point. And so that's just something to realize as we go down the road here on more and more currency devaluations. And I see all this nonsense about, oh, this may be a currency war. Heck, we've been having currency wars for 4 years. This isn't anything new. It's just a continuation of what's been going on for some time. It's just that China now is ratcheting it up and making it a little more and maybe aggressive, being a little bit more aggressive about it is the word. So here's the charts. All right, big down day, flip around, hammer reversal, right? It's this big range, and anytime you get towards the bottom of that range, they come in and they buy it, right? That's your low risk spot. You can put your stop up underneath here. That's the spot to take it and take it back the other way, and that's what they keep doing. Now the problem with this, and you're going to see it in almost every chart you see tonight, is almost every one of these hammer reversals has huge volume on them, or certainly expanding volume. If you just draw a line across here at volumes, you know, there's not any hardly, there's just a few that have this kind of volume on them. Down day here, a down day on this one. This was a down day. This one was the start of a down day, and that is also, actually that one was, yeah, that was a down day as well. So every one of the expansions to the downside. You got another one here. What does that tell you? That tells you that what it was testing, and in this case it was testing this swing point low. So this swing point low, volume there, not as much as the volume on the test. That means it's going to come back and try to break it again. Does it have to do it immediately? No. It can take another week or so, or it may come back within a day or two. But the hammer, you know, more than likely big hammer reversal, you're going to get some sort of follow through, and then we'll see it try to do it again to the downside. That's the S&P 500. If we look at the NASDAQ, right, same thing, reversal, test lower, has more volume, not huge, but more volume. That one can actually come back and test again, but I suspect, as I've already said, you're going to see some follow through tomorrow. That's the NDX, and then the weakest one is the Russell. Now the Russell actually got the reversal, closes back over this low one more time, but big volume, and even though it has a hammer, it looks to me like it's going to have to do some more testing somewhere down the road. So as you go through the list here and you look at those, they pretty much all say the same thing, and that is, hey, they're probably going to take it higher initially, and then at some point we'll see some sort of a come back down, test again, and either on that test we'll see them actually, you know, prevail. In other words, lighter volume, sellers don't want to sell, or you'll finally get the breakdown. So if we flip this over and start looking at the world markets, let's just run through them, because you know there's a lot of action overseas that's really pummeling, so to speak, on most of those markets. Here's the all ordinaries, right? Pushing down. They're pushing down, they're testing the lows, they're testing with volume. They look like they're going to try to break. If we look at India, remember India was pushing up, trying to get back to the top. What does it do? It rolls over, volume expands. Same thing, right? They're all getting hit off this devaluation. Brazil, trying to break out the bottom, breaks again a swing point low, breaks with volume. If we go over to Europe, 2 big down days in a row there, volume expands. This is the CACs. It's at the swing point low. It hit it with volume. Looks to me like it's going to try to break it tomorrow. If we look at London, and actually the London market had volume expanding on the way down as well. And over in Germany, volume expands 2 days in a row now. You break a swing point low, you're going to the bottom of the range. Now, big fast moves already. They're going to set up bounces at some point. It could be tomorrow. It could be another 2 or 3 days. But you can see what's happening. You're getting a lot of turmoil overseas. Canada benefiting from the oil bounce in oil stocks. But if we look elsewhere, like if we go to Asia now, Taipei making new lows. If we look at any of those here's Japan. If we look at any of these, we're going to see more and more devastation. Here's Japan coming down with a little bit of volume. Now Korea tried to hold volume expansion or break under the low. And finally, if we look at Hong Kong and Shanghai, Hong Kong comes down. It's into the bar finally. That looks to me like it's going to try to travel to the bottom. And as I've said, I think it's a truer read than what you're seeing in Shanghai. Shanghai just barely down, but I don't know. You know, I realize that they're going to benefit from what's going on with this devaluation. But you've got a lot of other issues that's already driven this down before, and you have all the intervention, so it's kind of hard to read what's happening here. If I just look at it purely from a technical, neoclassical point of view, it has done what it needs to do and can try to trade higher off this ABCD structure that's starting to form here. So you got a little AB that's starting to form. You take it back up, try to test those highs. That's Shanghai. If I look at the sectors, right? If I come over and look at the sectors in the U.S. markets, you're going to see on almost all of these volume expansion with a few exceptions. One of them, for example, is biotech. Biotech goes under, back over, less volume. That one looks like it's going to get another bounce tomorrow. If I look at, say, transports, right? Transports held. That one's also no volume. But then you get into some of the others where you saw some volume expansion. Even the SOX turns around, but leaves some volume on the downside. Financials, same story. A lot of volume on the downside there. Hammer reversals, but volume. The industrials, not too bad. That one looks okay. The XLK actually looked okay. But if you go over, and at least today it did, if you go over and look at the discretionary, though, big volume there. If you look at healthcare, pretty decent volume there as well. Not enough to break it out. Healthcare still looks contained up here, and if you look at it on a weekly, it's in a range. But about 3 or 4 of those, and I think the durables also had some big volume today. Well, expansion of volume. So going to the currencies, which is where everything's happening, right? If you look over here, you can see the currencies spiking higher. For example, the euro. The euro, of course, gets bid up because relative the Chinese currency now, of course, it is better off. That's putting pressure on the dollar, and we look at the dollar, you can see the dollar actually selling down. Now, these are all in ranges, and if we pull this back, it's just a range trade still at this point. The issue coming in before China started doing this was the potential for this dollar to break out. And I suspect before long, just as I said to start with, what we're going to see is we're going to see this market actually turn around, and we're going to see the dollar work higher again because other currencies, other countries are going to have to devalue their currencies to be competitive, so to speak. And so you're going to see all of this, initially doing what it's doing, it's pulling back, staying in the range, and then somewhere down the road, you'll see the other countries start taking action and pushing it back the other way. Of course, a stronger euro, a weaker dollar helps commodities, and that's what you're starting to see. You're seeing gold finally come off, the bottoms. It's going to come back and test And I've got it on a weekly now. It's going to come back to do a retest regen. This did exactly what it was supposed to do on a break, and that is that when you break underneath here, you should get an extension 2 to 3 bars. That's what it did. Now it's going to bounce back up and test. If it does it within 6 bars, which is, it's close to doing now, that would say it can get right to the top of that test. And so gold on the way back up, targets, you'd have to look at these two targets, about the 110 area up as high as maybe about 113 and change. So that's the gold markets, and that's how they're setting up. So overall, to wrap it up tonight, you got bounces, you got hammer reversals, you left volume in most cases. That says you're probably going to come back down there, and could come back down there as soon as tomorrow, the next day. You got a lot of economic number back end loaded, in other words, tomorrow and the next day, so that's where we're going to potentially see something, but there's not a lot of data this week. What really is going to be the driver, of course, is what happens in China again tonight, and that should be happening here pretty shortly, and that will probably drive the way this market opens and closes tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. Have yourself a great one. I'll see you next time. Good night.